Alright, so getting started, I'll line up the comic here and prepare to model this floppy disk. This isn't a tutorial, so I won't be completely narrating every single thing I'm doing because it's a time lapse and everything's moving at the speed of light. However, after I cut in using the center dot, I came back and added a gray circle using the center dot that was made from that first cut. And from here, I'm just making the center of the diskette. For the most part, the modeling on this is real simple, but I didn't want to do a video narrated about this, just kind of explaining some of the process on doing something maybe a little bit funner than all the hard surface stuff that I'm usually way into. And also diskettes can be fun as well. So using the mirror tool to set things up, I then add a C sharpen, which works for creating this. Bevel this side manually. And I decided that I was going to actually build it non-destructively, so that way I would have control right here. I've been experimenting with this one particular glitch where I can draw an end gun, leave it, and switch to the box, and it'll still be there for a second. It's kind of weird. Hopefully we get that cleared up at some point. I do gotta also add that 2.8 is changing quite a bit, so there are some hiccups that can be expected, of course. I do get quite a few support mails and I try to respond to everyone promptly, but we are aware that Mac people just aren't as beloved. Something strange going on there. Every time I see it, I'm just like something Mac. I went on the Mac site and I was like, I should just get a Mac Mini. I was looking at it, i3 processor, $1,300. No, are you guys crazy? What's going on with Mac? I was looking at another one, i5, $1,500. You don't believe me? Go look at the Mac website. But anyways, right here, I actually use a plane and I added loop cuts on it because this particular model is intended to be deformed. And that's kind of the focus of the video, is that I wanted to model something using booleans, but also deform it and give it curvature because it's on a treadmill running. And so I was actually planning on modeling all the rest of this. However, I do have some work engagements I got to deal with first, so I will be coming back to this. But I did record this process and wanted to post a video of it, just kind of showing how I work with boxcutter and hard ops and 2.8 just for casual stuff, goofing off. But I did really enjoy this comic. The first time I saw it, I laughed at it for completely different reasons until I realized the pin drive at the end was doing a surprise Pikachu face, and I was like, I gotta model that thing. So, floppy disk is actually pretty easy. Looking at this, like the hard part of this is done, which is making the disk itself. However, you will see me go through a little bit of back pain with the deformation of it. So that brings me to the point of this particular video. Right here I used mirror so that I could work on one side but be able to push it over to the middle and maintain control over its center point. And of course I need to move it to the right collection. We'll put a small B width on it, hit it with the weighted normal. As you can see, I sometimes still take the long way to the modifiers because old habits die hard. And it's just such a good place for it. But also add modifier as a main menu thing. So with that, this this floppy disk is pretty much done. So I add a couple of loop cuts in order to get a little bit more control over it. And I first try to put a lattice on it. And you'll see that this will result in a little bit of pain. However, deformation is always just a matter of geometry and control, of course. So while you see it looking strange right now, I will be getting that under control. And in this case, it's really a matter of taking a look at the wire for the cutter itself, which probably took me a little bit longer than normal to realize. But these are the type of things that, I also personally encounter over the course of modeling. However, there are always solutions for these sort of things as well. In fact, I could add a subdivision all the way at the very top of the stack, and then I would have absolute control over the curvature. However, until I add extra span stack cutter, it's just not going to help. Even if I do something like that, it's just not going to work. So, you know, I'm sitting here watching myself, you know, like the ghost of Christmas past, looking at this treadmill image, you know, wishing that was me, you know, not running on a treadmill. But it looks like I ended up moving on to the legs, but watch, that thought will come to me. So this guy had some really narrow legs, which I liked. And also at the front of the skin, you notice that face that looks kind of weird with Subdivision. I must admit that it took me a little bit too long to notice that that was actually a flipped normal. However, when it comes to 2.8, they don't show normals being flipped, so it's not part of my things that I think about. Right here, I use clean mesh to remove all those etc. loops, so that I could add my own etc. loops and use Alt S to push things in. So I do have my hotkeys displayed at the bottom of the screen, so if you are curious on what I'm pressing exactly, like I said, I'm not in this particular video explaining every keystroke. You know, I think my last couple of videos were doing that, and people were saying that they were still too fast, so this was more of a casual chat. So right here I put a mirror. However, notice that with the mirror modifier, even though it bisects and put it in the middle, it doesn't add an edge to the center. So it makes things with selection just kind of weird whenever you mirror things using modifier, if there's not a edge loop going down the center. So I do recommend that you try adding an edge loop. In fact, at some point I'll do it here, but I'm still wondering what's going on with that face, and I just don't know until I delete the face, put another one, and it's like, gee willikers, it was flipped. So Subdivision is still a thing to me. I use Subdivision in a lot of cases where I plan to control things geometrically using control loops and things like that, like you see me doing here. You know, just a basic floppy disk treadmill foot, you know, nothing complex here. But there's some things to enjoy about Subdivision. You know, Subdivision has completely different rules where, you know, the density of the geometry and its relation to each other determines crease in the amount of curvature. So once you're in control of that sort of stuff, it actually becomes pretty fun to play with. In fact, I still use it in a lot of cases when it comes to block ends and control situations, but that loop down the middle just isn't going to work. Watch, I have to push it in, but I have to select that loop and push it back out, and also do the same for the back. So it's kind of weird, but you know, I don't remember 7.9 being that way. So now we'll just work on this foot shape a little bit more, maybe even cut a loop in there to get a little bit more control. And of course we will just join some areas using J. J is one of my favorites. You can just select one point, select another point, and it will just make an edge to connect in between. That time I corrected the normals and it actually just worked out for me, which is great. So now we've duplicated and moved it to the other side. And right here I'm trying to you know, deform the leg, but it's apparent that I'll need a little bit more geometry in here in order to add some volume. You know, really this is the most basic of Subdivision modeling right here, but with that the legs are, you know, done. So it wasn't even a whole lot of work. I don't know why I was dreading doing the legs for some reason. I was like, I don't want to do the legs just yet, but really once you get in there, you know, these props become secondary. You know, especially once you start, I don't know, I guess it's just something that happens for me, but you know, after I start making something, the secondary assets that are required just for some reason are a lot simpler. Just easier for me to do because it's like a home stretch type of thing. It's like, oh, I got to make a table. Well, table 3 seconds, you know, because I'm already on fire from modeling for the last you know, hour or so. So in this case, making the treadmill was, you know, just a matter of just a little poly modeling. However, I did want an additional level of control, and that was for the scale. So that's where I add a hook using Control H, and of course hooks are added to the top of the modifier stack, and with the hook being there it gets weird, and I see that, you know, I probably want to shrink that even more. You know, it's this little treadmill. I interpret it as a little treadmill. Maybe it's a big treadmill. But continuing on, we'll just bevel this, mirror it to the other side. And I was going to put a cube there and realized that, you know, that'd probably be a bad idea. You know, if I scaled a cube, fit it in there and tried to bevel it, you know, that's probably dumb. What would be smarter would be to duplicate it, delete the faces I don't need, and just make the interior that way. You know, just sometimes I think of keystrokes post project, you know, like afterwards I'm like, you know, I could have saved a lot of keystrokes doing it this way or that way, you know, especially when I'm reviewing my own content. But at this point I actually got pretty good at recognizing at the moment I might have been wasting my time. So continuing on, now we're making the arms, this is the making. You know, to think about the skin modifier is you can always press Control A to adjust the scale of things. However, I just like applying it and just pressing Alt S in order to push things in and out on the normals. Had to think about it for a minute. So many hotkeys are changing. I was just talking about how I had to trade all my 2.79 knowledge to be able to make it in this 2.8 generation. It was just too drastic a change. I can't go back to 7.9. Wouldn't open it to save my life. However, still enjoying 2.8. So continuing on, I duplicate the arm, hide it, you know, who knows if I need to come back to it later and make some larger modification. So I'm just adding some volume, giving it some elbow. You know, nothing serious. And of course, we'll put the origin where we need it, but the the rotational origin in the scene isn't set to medium point. So now we can actually rotate at the base of the arm. Now rotate the hand a little bit. And get it just the right scale. I think after a moment I realized that the upper arm just seems a little long. But it's getting there. So seeing this comic, I was just thinking to myself that you know, it would have been a fun little EV adventure. But you know, it's definitely you know, if you can't think of anything else to do, you know, all of me, it's a fun time. So now we have the disc. He looks good from the front, but you know, this guy, longest arm ever. So let's correct that. And all I'll do is just remove a loop and just bring it in on the local. But the back, we have to look at the back. We just can't let it go. But before that, I'm gonna have to model these sweat droplets. And there's probably some more effective ways I could have done this in retrospect. I mean, right here I put the cast on it and I shouldn't have had the cast, which ended up making the curvature get a little bit off. So I played with smoothing for a minute. I tried smooth is crazy. I tried the other smooth, you know, this one's crazy. I was thinking, you know, I should come back and mess with that later and see what kind of results I can get from that. But in the end, just modeling it properly ended up doing the trick. I mean, voila, teardrop. Just edge here, edge there, a little bit of push, we're done. So now we're getting the droplets on it. And I look at the back there, I saw it for a split second, and I know that that's unacceptable. So this video can't end without me solving that one cutter. That one cutter caused me a hard time. And also smooth just isn't working out in any cases that you see here. So that's why I'm having to use proportional editing and basic modeling just to move things in. But of course, since it's subdivision, everything is easily controllable by just moving and shaping loops. So to include this, we finally get to the back, which the back just looks terrible. You know, you look at that, it's like, you know, you shouldn't have modeled this with pull-ins, but you add a couple of loops and you call it a day and you're done. Floppy disk complete. So with that, I'll wrap up this video and I'll see you guys next time.